What's up, everybody? It is season 4. Well, that's 4 right there of BizTalk, the show. And we're doing things a little bit different this time. We're doing live streaming. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have on-site events and interviews, but that's going to change too, because we're not just going to do live stream this season, but hopefully next season we'll have live streaming and on location interviews. But we want to just jump right in right away because we got a lot to talk about in this episode, our first episode. And this is about planning your business's future, right? So that's a huge thing for a lot of people. We're going to define what that really is. And I have 2 incredible experts, people who've been with me for the years. These are folks who are pushing the limo uphill with 2 flat tires, my limo. So when we hit those success beats, we're going to be popping the Dom Perignon on the strip somewhere and shaking the bottle through the sunroof. And that's the goal I have, at least one of them, for my business's future. Now, for you guys, I'm going to introduce you to 2 amazing people. Rafael Mata, he's a former New Jersey SBDC Regional Director. Now, if you don't know what SBDC stands for, that's Small Business Development Centers, and that's a national thing. Go look it up online, America's SBDC. But he's also, now that he's not wearing the government hat, he's also private sector now, business consultant, probably one of the best you'll ever meet because of that background. And he runs a company called Gambit Services, which provides small business development services for small businesses. And then finally, with me, he is the co-founder of the National Center for Local Business and Workforce Development. And we're not going to get into that today, but we'll talk more about that on another episode. So I'm going to bring Rafael in here right now so he can say hi. Let's get him in here. Okay, bear with me on this live stream stuff. Why is he not popping in? Let's go. There we go. Too many buttons to press. Too many buttons. How you doing, Raf?
No problem. I think you did a great job on my intro.
I mean, the only thing I couldn't bring you was because we're not face to face. I couldn't bring you the little crystal tiara to bring you on in.
Yeah, but I'm very happy to be joining you today. You know, as Eric said earlier, Gambit Services is a strategic consulting firm. We help people identify new revenue. We help people with complicated compliance issues, and we help them get procurement ready. The thing that people mostly reach out to us about are that how to apply for grants, how to put a bid together. And these things are a lot more complicated than I like to admit. So I am now here in the private sector helping guide people individually around all the pitfalls that the government has for you and small business has for you.
Of course, the pitfalls,
the landmines, the
landmines,
the grenades.
Pitfalls is putting it politely.
That is very politely, yeah.
So, and I'm glad you're with me again. I've interviewed you a few times on the show. You've become a staple. You're going to be like the Ed McMahon of the show at this point, right? For those people who don't know who Ed McMahon is, go look it up on the internet. You have Google. So my next guest, also someone that I recently met. We met at one of our procurement events. Dr. Loralyn Mears is the founder of SteerUs, and I believe, and she'll correct me when she comes on, it's called Midlife Success. And these are programs that help small businesses. Basically, the bottom line, just like Rafael, the bottom line is get it out of that muck, get around their own mistakes. Because let's be real here, despite the fact that there's a lot of pitfalls and pratfalls, politely being said, as a small business in government contracting, the fact of the matter is most of the time as a small business, we make our own problems and we step in our own shit. That's what the reality is. But Dr. Mears, full disclosure, is also the co-host of an amazing podcast called How, Why, What. She is my co-host. And on that show, unlike this one where we're real low key, that one, we're monsters. We're beasts. We're relentless. So go check that out. That's also on here on our YouTube channel. But I'm going to bring Dr. Mears in to grace your presence.
Thank you, Eric. Always fun, right? And it's just, that's what it's about. It's just making it interesting because life is not dull for entrepreneurs.
No, it's not. It's not. You know, I'm a firm believer, like, I don't want to discount a small business owner, but I believe there's a difference between a small business owner who's got this business and an entrepreneur, right? And entrepreneurs tend to be bigger risk takers. They tend to be visionary, looking at the next thing. And there's this constant sort of go behind that. And it's not to say that's not the same as small business owner who's maybe, and I'm going to say, let's say they're a pipe fitting company, right? They're that's what they do. They do pipe fitting. They're a small business owner. They're an entrepreneur, but they're also sort of a different one than that person that's the constant maker, the constant creator, like a Steve Jobs, right? So, but both of them, both types of businesses face the same choices, right? What's in my future? They have to have the goals and make those decisions. And Rafael, we were talking about it off camera. You and I had said, and I even said this to you, Dr. Mears, off camera, was there's different visions of what a business's future looks like. Some people are only looking at how do I pay the rent, while other people are looking way down the pipe. And I think, Rafael, we hit on that, was, going into that, looking to pay the rent every month. That's not really a business future. It's in fact a hindrance. And you had some good things to say about that off camera. Why don't you jump in on that?
Yeah, Eric. So, a lot of the work that all of us do here is because we really understand that there's a key problem, that there's a lot of confusion around being self-employed and being a business. Business is scalable, all right, and being self-employed has certain limitations. So to Eric's comment, if you're looking to grow your revenue in your business, you're looking to scale it, right? And you're focusing on what your debts are, what your bills are, what your obligations are. And that's what you're shooting for. Think about the fact that you're limiting your growth. It's the same sort of analogy that people use when they say, if you trap a flea inside of a bottle and you put a cap on it, and it tries to jump out several times, after a while, it stops trying to jump out because it kind of thinks to itself, this is my whole world and I can't go past that. Entrepreneurs and business owners, I see them doing that stuff a lot, where they're just looking for the revenue to get by. They're basically applying an employee mentality to a business. The best part, Eric, of being a business is you don't have to have limitations. The amount of effort you pour in and creativity will get you the rewards. It's the real American dream. And we're in a world now where working by itself is not gonna make it happen. We're stepping into an entrepreneurship future. Everyone's gonna be an entrepreneur, I think.
Yeah, what's your take on that, Dr. Mears?
Well, I think it goes even into the people that are in companies. So I've had the opportunity through my career to be in those intrapreneurial roles, right? Where it's so much less scary because you've got the big brand and the big budget behind you, and you get to flex and you do the really cool Skunk Works project, right? And everybody wants to be on your team because it's the it thing to do. No problems with recruiting, right. No problems with participation. Yeah, I'll give up my job doing the TPS reports every day, and I'm going to come on your team, Loralyn, right? Like no problems, right? And so that, I think, is something that's going to start to happen more and more. But I think it's going to go from some of the, we'll call it the macro, at the level of the organization that says we're going to have this intrapreneurial Skunkworks project, to the individual level that we're going to need to come up and step up and flex our entrepreneurship, like entrepreneurial style of ideas and ways to bring things forward so that we get noticed, because we are entering the era of not the great displacement, the great replacement, right? As AI and other technologies, they are coming for our jobs. And so we need to find ways that we can stand out. And that can be everything from, oh, I've upskilled, I've got these talents, to I've got these ideas and I've been working on this thing and I want to bring it to the organization so that we stand out and we make ourselves, I guess, more indispensable, right? No one's indispensable. But
right.
That's, I think, like to Rafael's point, we need to think about what those skills are in entrepreneurship. They are radical optimism, ruthless prioritization, right? And grit.
Yeah, grit. So I think let's jump on that grit for a minute, because I think when we're talking about planning our future as a small business, right, and as an entrepreneur, um, it is that grit, that stick to itiveness, where I often say, people say to me, "Oh, you're a professional." I'm like, "Yeah, professional at failure," um, because I've failed so many times. I know not what not to do, right? And I think that's every entrepreneur gets that, but you have to get through those fall downs and those get ups, and you have to realize that sometimes when you're planning your business's goals, they're not going to hit on the day you want them to hit, right? And so you have to have this grit, you have to have this determination. And when you're planning for the future, this is having grit. This is one of the few times I say fake it till you make it make sense. Bite down on that wooden, biscuit or whatever you got to do, and just fight through it. Like, fake it, cry in the corner. And we've said this before, Dr. Mears, on the shower floor in the fetal position. Do
Have
what you
your
got to
ugly
do.
cry. Get it out.
So how do we get that? Does an entrepreneur find, or a small business owner, a baker, whatever, find that grit? Like, what is it? Where are they drawn from? You want to pick up that one, Rafael? Because I know you have a lot of grit.
Oh my God, great. Yeah. Without it, you won't make it anywhere. You almost have to be a little bit of a glutton for punishment to really jump into entrepreneurship. But what makes you jump into that pain is that you have a vision. You have a vision for an improvement. You're looking at the world and you're highly disturbed that something really not working well. Something is not there. Why can't we have that? Why can't the world be better? And I'll tell you that it's part of the journey. If you look at all the people that you admire, you mentioned Steve Jobs. That guy's a master of failure. It's a master of failure. I've never seen anybody kicked out of so many places in my life, and rebooting companies. But that grit creates momentum. If you have a vision and you're chasing a vision, you just need to keep moving in that vision, no matter what anybody tells you. It just needs to be something that you're very passionate about, and it needs to address a real problem. If you're just copying somebody else's stuff, grit is not going to help you there. But if you really have something original, you just keep pushing, like Eric said, until you fail 1,000 times. Failure is part of the process. They just never talk about that. I wish they talk more about that, but you fail a lot before you win.
Like the Dyson vacuum cleaner guy, right? I made 1,834 models until the first one actually sucked up crumbs or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's got an interesting story. So, when you're talking about, again, so, you have to have this grit, you have to have this stick to itiveness. If you don't have it, if you don't get up from your failures and you don't learn from them, that's the key, learning from them. Honestly, just keep underwater basket weaving on your kitchen table. I mean, it is what it is. But let's talk about, like, that to me, there's, again, I'm going to go back to this first question. It's where do people get out of this mindset about chasing the rent? I think that's a hard mindset. I admit I did, and I said this to you again off camera. I was chasing the bills every month for a long time when I started blacking. Chase the bill, got to pay the bills. And that was my chase. That was my goal. And my success, no matter the fact that I loved what I was doing, I didn't really see the success start until I started seeing way beyond the bills. And then all of a sudden the bills are paid. And I'm like, wait a minute, when did that happen? So how do we get people past that fear of paying the bills? I mean, that to me is a hard place for people to come out of.
So people talk about, like, the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset, right? Things like that. I think what it speaks to overall is just the mindset. Like Rafael said, you're so dialed in, and you didn't use the word, but I heard you describe it. It's not just the vision, because that's where you're going. It's your purpose. Your purpose is aligned with your passion, right? And if your purpose is aligned with your passion, you're going to find ways to get it done, because you believe so wholeheartedly in fixing the solution and fixing the problem that it's so important that you're going to find a solution no matter what, right? You're committed to it. You're locked in. But this speaks to the next part of this, which is that mindset. I'll say me and talk about me, was so convinced that youth needed soft skills that I literally bet the farm, right? Burn the boats. I'm like, yeah, I'm going all in, right? I mortgaged my home, bet my retirement, built a really, really cool e-learning platform, built tons of courses and content and soft skills. And then people went, yeah, this looks good. Won 3 of the top 10 boards of education in the country, right? And then they all got doged. And then looked at all of that and said, okay, great. Are we ready for this? And the kids that were the intended recipients of the lessons went, yeah, we don't need no stinking soft skills. And we've got TikTok. And the teachers said, but you do need soft skills. And then the teachers told the kids, and the kids went home and told the parents. And then the parents came to the school and said, honey, you're the teacher. You need to be teaching my kid these soft skills. And then the teachers got all bent out of shape and went to their principals and to their union and said, you need to go talk to those parents because it's not my job. They're not parenting. The parents got the whiplash and went, oh my God, how dare they? So then the kids went into the workplace and the business owners went, what is happening? These kids have got nothing. They've got no grit. They've got no resilience. Yeah, they got great ideas with tech and new things, and they want to change the world, but you've got to do it all in their terms or it's not happening. So they need soft skills, but I'm not paying for no stinking soft skills. It's up to the parents. It's up to the team. And it was all this, right? That said, I still believed in trying to figure out ways to make things better, overcoming the challenges in the workforce, the toxicity. I have been on the receiving end of so much toxicity. I'm on like literally a crusade to try to figure out how do you get rid of that? How do you stop that overwhelm? How do you get out of that mindset where like, the bills are due. I got to pay my people. I didn't get the contract. That one went down, right? Like, how do you get out of that mindset? Because you'll lose your mind just trying to do it. You'll burn out, done that. You get fried. How do you do it? It's again, looking back, I think it's 2 things. One, it's looking back at what anchors you, right? What's your purpose? What's your passion? Why is it aligned? Why are you doing it, right? Your why. Simon Sinek, right? He's made billions of dollars. Start with why, right? Start there. And then I think that the next thing is not getting overwhelmed by the enormity of the problem, figuring out one thing you can fix per day. What can I do a little bit better today? And you do that whole incremental approach, then you start building your confidence. Yeah, I got that. And then you look back at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year and go, yeah, I moved the needle. That's what I think we have to do to get out of this mindset.
So before you jump in there, Rafael, and take 47 minutes of our time,
no dig there.
I'm gonna steer you on this question, Rafael, because
what a horrible first impression.
Hey, I've had to kick you off stage, and you're like, it's the time.
He was digging to me.
I earned it.
I was chatting.
I earned it.
Oh, he earned it. You had to see him. He was on stage one time, and I'm like, you got 10 minutes, and he's up there like for 30 minutes.
It was like 40 minutes. I earned it. I'm on suspension. Yeah, I'm currently suspended until about the December.
So this goes, and I think this is a great question. You talk about, because you've dealt with it a lot being on that govvie side, right? You've dealt with small business coming in for services, and you've had to teach them at that micro level of how to change their mindset. And this is what Dr. Mears is just saying is, taking that one task a day. How do we get people to do that? Because here's the reality. We're sitting here right now, all 3 of us, repeating the same shit we have repeated for the last decade.
Yeah. In different industries, and it's the same thing.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Yeah.
It's the same thing. So clearly it's the same problem. We keep seeing the same problem. And we need people to find, we need to get something to click in their brains outside of doing some MK Ultra shit on them. Right. So how do we do that, Rafael? How do we get their brains to click on that one task a day?
I think you said it. Loralyn said it. It's the one task a day. What I found successful, because it was like trying to eat an elephant when I first started. I first started in government and I would get angry. I finally left my career in extreme disappointment because I knew what government was supposed to do on all its levels. It doesn't. By design, it cannot work. It would be like having a whole bunch of separate soda cans trying to communicate with each other when they're all separate silos and they're designed that way. So I would meet with a business owner and just encourage them that they could do whatever we're trying to do. And what Gambit is good at, and what I got good at, was mapping out what those steps are to get to where their end is. So with that, I guess a checklist you could talk about, and me encouraging them, saying you could do it. And just like Loralyn said, one at a time, they get emboldened as we got them their certification. And I registered for tax collection on the state website. And as they go doing this stuff, they're like, this wasn't that hard. I just didn't know the words, or I didn't know the website, or I didn't know what this document meant, or whatever. So encouraging them and explaining things to them in layman's terms is what I've basically had a very successful career in, and helped a lot of people. I'm not sure why education and government and the rest of the folks design all these kind of different words and processes. I mean, you get a small business and you hit them with, oh, we need a Gantt chart. You know, you're you're pretty familiar with that, and they're like, what is that?
What?
Yeah, exactly. I own a hardware store. What is a Gantt chart? What is that? You know?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. I would say, just like has been mentioned before, just focus on one task at a time. If you get it wrong, go back. If the grant person asks for clarification, give them the clarification. And be very patient, because you're going to get a lot of silly responses, a lot of insensitive responses, and sometimes they'll ask you for things you already provided. You got to breathe in and just give it to them.
Well, you know,
I sent you this.
yeah, right. I sent you 17 times already.
I sent it to you already, right?
Yeah. How did the IRS lose my file?
Exactly. And it's on me, and the burden is on me. It's like,
Yeah, right.
okay.
So let's talk about, planning for the future. It's a kind of a step one thing. And you said this, lists, right? And there's people out there that'll make lists. They'll write them down. They'll get their little notebook. As a matter of fact, Hayes, our content coordinator, she is the notebook queen in the company. And that chick's got everything written down. I got to watch what I says, because she got a photographic memory too. But it's brilliant when I see what she does. She has everything. She puts tabs, real super organized. But some people aren't going to do that. Some people, maybe they need AI, or they need Siri, or they need Chat GPT or whatever, and they should take advantage of it. And listen, folks, if you're broke, that's okay. Be broke, because there's stuff out there, base model stuff that's free, that'll help you get started on this. And I'm not giving a plug to anybody, because I don't really know what's out there that's good, but Google it. I mean, we got Google. Like, Google's a verb now, so go do it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So I think that's a step one, is just, make these lists. And, if you got to be that Post-it note person, be that Post-it note person. I used to dread that shit. I used to dread having like Post-it notes on my computer. Like, I'm never going to be that. Now I've got 2 on my computer. So we get them to say, okay, we're planning for your future. We're going to take one step at a time, one task at a time. Where do we take them next? What's the next step to help them begin to plan to get, again, out of this chasing the rent mindset? What are we putting them on to start to think beyond that, to be able to earn safely? I mean, we're talking about, we've done it. What did we do?
Well, Loralyn, if I could just jump in before you answer that, because I know that you're going to say something to that effect. I'm just going to say access to capital. That once I map out where they're going, and we've started the process, you eventually get to access to capital. So you're saying, hey, let's stop chasing the bills. There's a lot of resources, microloans, CDBG organizations that can do lending. We live in a country that is designed on debt. A lot of small businesses think that they can avoid that. I can tell you that the Hispanic culture it's like in us, it's bred in us. Like, don't take any debt, and don't. Well, you're gonna get outshined by your competitors. They have capital. They're using these tools, and they go to market faster. They can hire people faster. They can do all these things while you're sitting there spinning your wheels, trying to cover your bills. So that's all I got to say on that. I'm sure that Loralyn went through this. She just said it with the mortgage of the house and all this. Access to capital is like, if you want to make it happen, you got to believe in yourself. You got to go that route,
But there's also, instead of answering it that way and what we need, there's the downside of that, because right, there's good and bad with everything. And so when you do that and you've gone all in, right, and you burnt the boats, you quit your job, you did whatever, right? Now you're like, yeah, I got to make the company work. The pressure gets to be so great that here's what even happened to me, right? We're sharing, like amongst us girls, right? We're having a chit chat, that you start to panic and think, God, it goes back to that bill mentality. Now I did all of this and I bet it and I've spent it, and I better take this on. I better take that customer on. I better do that other thing. And then this other thing. And what about that other thing? And then all of a sudden you're taken away from what you're supposed to be doing, because you're stuck in that hamster wheel of, I got to find a way to pay. I got to find a way to pay. I got to do this because the pressure gets really high. And, to be really honest, the way to do it is just to unplug from everything except one thing. Except when I say that, I haven't actually been able to successfully do it. So I'm one of those people that still stays, engaged into this, into that. What I'm getting better at doing is that ruthless prioritization. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Should I do this? I love doing things with Eric because his heart's all in it and you help him and you get things done. But there's still some things I'm behind on. Syndication. And so
syndication. Say it loud. Syndication.
And so you've got to figure out, though, like, how do you make it happen? And then as much as you can plan, right, things come in between. So one of my main clients, this huge contract came in from the feds, and they gave 5 extended to 8 business days to write a massive federal grant on building and remodeling shelters and helping homeless youth. I'm like, are you kidding me?
It's so atypical.
Right? Are you kidding me? And yeah, are you going to take 5 days to read it?
They gave you that many days.
Yeah, I know, right? They're so generous. And it sunk me, because that was my full focus. That's all I could do. I couldn't do anything else. Other stuff and everything got neglected, and you do this and you're like, oh my God. And so then you end up behind the 8 ball. And then what do you do and how do you dig out and think, well, of course I couldn't give that up. That's best client. That's this, that's that. And so it gets to be really difficult, but I almost think you need to fall into one of those pits, those morasses of disaster, until you come up from it and go, oh, I got to make changes.
Right. And I think that's look, that's par for the course, human nature. This is the one thing we're actually trying to sit here to discuss changing. By human nature, nobody's thinking about, oh my God, except for the doom preppers. The doom preppers have got that shit down on lock. But the rest of us, none of us are sitting here going, oh, what happens if the power goes out globally and we're without our computers? Nobody's prepared for that shit, right?
Or if you're sitting on the tarmac, not to jump in, and United Airlines decides in some bonehead move that we're going to roll out new software. We didn't do a test environment. We didn't test it. We don't have a disaster recovery backup system, but we're just going to go for it because they're like me, go big or go home. Let's see what happens. And we grounded thousands of planes globally. Jesus. So everybody sat there without the air conditioning on, sweating buckets, going, oh,
wait! You need to save this for How, Why, What. Come on, this is wrong show. Wrong show.
I was just gonna tell her. I was gonna say that's why you're good at what you do, because you see that. And when you get to a certain level, in your career, you start to say, so none of these folks kind of have it figured out, and we got to figure it out. Yeah, again.
I'm going to jump back here because my goal here today, right now, is to sort of give people these tidbits on what they can do. Look, lifting a feather isn't hard. You just got to lift a damn feather.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not hard. So I'm trying to give people a feather right now in this. We're planning for the future. So, and I'm going to go back to wearing all the hats. Entrepreneurs wear all the hats. And most of the time we wear all the hats because we have no money, which goes back to capital. Right. But there comes a point where you have to. Now, full disclosure, Black Ink never took any loans or credit cards over a decade. But the minute we knew we wanted to expand, we had to start taking money. We, as a matter of fact, this year got our first American Express. You know what I mean? In order for us to expand, we had to take the leap. We had to take the leap, but with taking that leap comes, and again, thinking towards the future. So I see, my ProcurementCon brand as a national brand, right? That's ProcurementCon. It's national. I have a national plan for that. And I have a strategy laid out for that. I see for the National Center for Workforce Development, for local business and workforce development, a national plan that sort of in its own right mirrors ProcurementCon's movements. But Black Ink events, I don't see a national plan for that. I'm keeping that ground into the home turf, right here in New Jersey, maybe the tri-state. So I have a strategy for all that, but I'm thinking way down the line, 5 years. I'm looking at 5 years from now. I'm having a strategy from 5 years from now. And the truth is that strategy is just written down. I'm sort of getting, it's not, I have to do all these things in 5 years and I've got to hit all these beats. I know where I want to be in 5 years, but along the way, I have to keep building that road a little bit, riding the bike while I'm building it a little bit, so that's what I'm kind of doing here, is a plan ahead and then take those risks, right? We took the risk for the money. Now I'm taking the risk, building a sponsor team, building an exhibition team, and building those. So that's off my back. But and that's a hard give up. And I think that what I'm really trying to say is that as entrepreneurs, part of our strategies to building a business is learning to let go. We have to give the responsibility to someone we can trust that says they have the skills to do it. And I think now we have making lists, using AI to help them overcome tasks, looking at a strategy to gain capital so they can earn more, but also the responsibilities, right? We have to learn to let go. How hard was it for you, Dr. Mears, to let go when you first had to let go, and give the responsibility to somebody else to take over?
Actually, I was on the other side. I'm very much willing to have different ideas and get people to figure out. My leadership style is go figure it out. I'm going to tell you where we need to get to. I don't care how you get there. A couple of rules, like some guardrails, right? Like no leaving bodies in your wake, nothing unethical, nothing illegal, but get there any way you want. I'm not going to dictate that. Take it. Who wants it? Hot potato. Yours. Toodles. Yeah. Next.
I know, Rafael, you too. I mean, you've been in that same situation too. Now, I know for a long time you were in management, right, with SBDC.
I cut my teeth with that there. Yeah. It was very difficult. If you have a high standard for your work and stuff and, you're in charge, it is difficult. But much like what's being said here, I would basically explain to people, this is what I want done. You have flexibility on doing it, all right? And if you feel that something else needs to be done to continue the work, you do it. And if there's a problem or someone gets in trouble, I will fall on the sword.
Right.
So I was able to create an environment. That's a leadership thing.
That's leadership.
Do that.
And not everybody can be a leader.
Yeah. Not everyone is one. Because they're worried about how they might appear and that sort of stuff. That is leading from the back. I did get shot a lot, in that situation, because people make mistakes, and then you kind of just have to say, yeah, I authorize that sort of stuff. But yeah, you have to get comfortable with giving people stuff and understanding that it may fail, that may be a delay, but how great is it? And I've had this experience too, when you can kind of mentor people, or they come back and you're in a positive way, say you should have done it this way, or you could do it this way, and they start taking off on their own. Eric, I can't even put words around, it like touches my heart. I get excited. Because you start to see things start taking form and moving on their own. But before that happens, sometimes it's like 6 months or 7 months where it's just a dumpster fire, and you're like pulling your hair out, and you're like, does no one get it? Am I not speaking English? Like all types of, you're freaking out. But it's like you have to have the patience and understanding that most people won't have your vision. Most people just want what small part or role that they play in the bigger thing. And you have to kind of be big enough for that. Every once in a while, you get lucky and you meet another leader and you can groom them and they'll be like you. But most people don't want to do that. Like, give it to them in bite sizes. Let them make mistakes. If you're the leader, that's your role. If you're building the vision, it's your role to take the shot. You're the grit person.
Yeah, you're
Everybody
the grit person.
Have that. You're the grit person. Yeah. So that's how I had a lot. I had a very good career where they I had a lot of managers that let me kind of just do stuff and get it done in whatever way possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I know that Dr. Mears, you were saying, you were sort of in this role, this other end of the role, but I know you have the leadership roles. You worked for a good period of your career in the pharma industry, especially you were in the venture side of pharma. So there was a lot of Wild West in that space that you had to deal with. So that brings me to my next question. You learn to let go, but you also have to have that ability to rein things in, right? To know where the stop is, to know how much pressure you can handle before that falling on the sword for you as a leader becomes problematic. So, how do we give people the confidence? How do we give entrepreneurs and small business owners the confidence in this planning of their future to take those risks? What did you do?
Well, so I guess a couple of pieces to that. So, as a former executive at a few Fortune 100s and things, and you work with a lot of different people. Everybody needs a different amount of rope. And I always do it and say, okay, if you're out to sea and I'm casting you out to sea and I'm the mothership, right? And you're tethered to me, every once in a while, I'm going to tug on it, let you know you're still tethered, you're still here. And if I see you're starting to drown, I'm going to pull some rope in, right? I'm going to pull you in. I'm going to get more involved, not up in your business, but with you in your business, right? It's different. And as an entrepreneur, the side of it where I was going to come from here, I think one of my biggest challenges and problems has been that originally I went into SteerUs with somebody we were going to be partners, 50-50, right? You put that money in, I'm going to put that money in. You put your 100 hours in, I'm going to put my 100 hours in. Divide and conquer. Oh, you like all of that nonsense and legal beagle and COO and, all of that sort of stuff. Fill out the TPS reports, do this, DEQ, the da-da-da-da-da, like all of the stuff, the corporation stuff and all this nonsense. Great. But that's not how it played out. So I ended up having to take on all of that. And where my recommendation is, you say, like, what do you say? And what do you say to entrepreneurs? I'm saying, don't do it. Be a solopreneur only if you can deliver 100% of the work by yourself. Might be a coach. Great. Set up a CRM and a scheduling tool. Great. Book your calendar. There it is. Yeah, set the maximum. Only taking 3 clients a day. Great. Whatever. Then you can do it as a solopreneur. When you're trying to build something, you're trying to build a platform, as I did, an e-learning platform.
Right.
You're trying to create a community. You're trying to create content. You really need a whole bunch of people who are as invested in you. The greater the complexity, the more bodies that you need. So that's where the entrepreneurship message has to come in. I see, and this is what I deal with, this is largely my client base, those micro businesses, largely women, a lot of fashion, retail, beauty, all that kind of stuff, where they're like, ah, and they literally come to me crying. They're so overwhelmed. I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this. And oh my God, like the kids are starting school next week. They don't even have new shoes. They don't have their backpack. Right? Because there's just no time left in the day and I got to pay the bills and so I think what people need to look at, and this is what I don't think we could do a good job of as society, as coaches, as business advisors, as whatever, SBDC groups, all these accelerators, is saying, look at the complexity of your business. Everybody, let's rate it. Oh, you're building a tech platform. Yeah, okay. You're using developers from here, there, and halfway around the world. Yeah, okay. You're doing this. Oh, you need a whole content base. Oh, you need this. Oh, you need outreach. Oh, you need sales. Oh, you're doing alliances. The complexity. Yeah. So put the scale on and say, well, with that level of complexity, that's a 10 body count. Versus I'm going to coach or I'm going to be a therapist a couple of sessions a day. That's this complexity and a this body count. And I wish we would do that when people signed up for their LLC, their C Corp, their whatever, and they registered, because then it would be like, honey, you're in for a shock, because it's not all bros and Lambos and the money just doesn't come pouring in. You don't sit there, Rolex, I got this, I'm an influencer, I'm all that, right? It's not how it works.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny you talk about the complexity, right? Because, it is really, it comes to that scale up, right? People are never really, who was I talking to? I was talking to somebody today, and I'm like, listen, you are really, really amazing at this one thing. You are top dog. You're the best I know in the business. You really are not good at building websites. Why are you doing it? Because, and
Right.
I'm comparing
That's right.
this
Yeah, yeah,
person
yeah,
to somebody who I work with over Outcome Engine. I'll give them a plug.
yeah.
And these people got their shit spot on and run circles around everybody. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Because I'm listening to this, this you could say these complaints and these problems from this person. And I'm like, look, you want to make money? Do what you're fucking amazing at. Do that. Stop taking on all this extra stuff, because now you need all these extra things. And what's the thing? More money, more problems. It's not always more money, more problems. More services, more freaking problems. But yeah, people need to. So listen, and again, going from that, start with your task list, take on one task a day. Think about your capital strategies going forward, how much money you're going to need when you want to reach a certain goal or to get a certain goal. Those things need to be thought of. You need to think about all these services or things you want to offer. Listen, when you walk into a bakery, and I love the bakery analogy because bakers know what they're doing. I bake breads, I bake cakes, I bake this, I bake that, I bake the other thing. I'm not making candy. You know what I mean? I'm not doing candy. I'm not making, I'm not maybe you go to a bakery, they have a bagels, but they're not a bagel place, right? Most bakeries don't have bagels, right? They stay their lane in such a way that they could still grow in it. They stay in their expertise. And so that's the next piece, I think, of advice in this, is understanding what you're giving. Excuse me. So, coming through this space, how do we help people set a goal? Like what's a task or a skill that they can do? I mean, we hear a lot of stuff. We hear, oh, make a vision board, or write it down in a notebook, or, and we all have our own methods. So maybe Rafael, what's a method when you're setting up goals that you've done to help you sort of just keep your eye on that goal? Notice it, remind yourself, like, well, give us a
That's
hot take on
interesting you say that, because that came up a lot when I was an SBA Thrive coach. It was that was kind of like my last government contract where I was doing these sort of accelerator programs. And I ended up oversimplifying what business development was. Specialization is very important. And what I learned with that group of individuals, and I'm gonna be honest with you, look, these people were making $150 to $1.2 million a year in revenue. And these people did not know this. They did not know what their specialty areas were. They did not know how to price anything. They did not have any sales goals. And this is it. No one talks about this stuff, but you're absolutely right. If you don't know how to make websites, then you shouldn't be playing in that world. I think where people get confused a lot of the time is because, we started talking about chasing the bills, and everybody gets fixated on, but I got to pay this and I got to pay that or whatever. You got to just do things in bite size as you're able. And if you can't afford things, look, thankfully for AI, if you don't know bookkeeping, you can sit there and just keep looking up every single thing and having it explain it to you. It'll take a long time, but once you have enough money to off that to another company, that's what you should be doing, because you should be focusing on your specialty areas. But I would say the number one thing would be come up with some sort of a BD plan. And before you can come up with all these fancy analysis, what I did is I said, hey, if you want to make $100,000 a year, how many months out of the year are you going to work? Let's say 10, because let's be realistic. You're going to get sick. There's going to be vacation. There's holidays. Approximately, you lose like 2 months, right? So I said, in 10 months, you have to make $100,000, right? So that's 10 grand a month. So what are you going to sell that's going to generate $10,000 a month? And then every month you should be looking at your bank account and saying, hey, I only made 8,000 this month. That means I got to make 12,000 next month. Or I had a great month. I made 14,000. I could take it easy a little bit next month, or keep pushing forward. Just those sort of little goals. I think the biggest problem is people start to look way too far out. And these programs that are in place, which is why we started the nonprofit, they focus on C-suite stuff, and they have solutions for organizations that already have all the bodies. As the doctor has said, they already are calculating as if you have the bodies. So I feel like that's the disconnect. You have the small businesses that are not at a corporate or scalable level, and all the advice they're getting is for scaling. What about the rest of the folks? They just need to know, hey, this is what I need to make, and this is what I need to do. Short goals, short term, think month by month until you're a big shot. That's what I think, month by month until you're a big shot, and the grit. You're a salesperson. It's your business. You gotta turn those sales over.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
So how about you, Dr. Mears? What's one of those things you put on the plate to keep your, whether it's a vision board or a notebook or maybe a sticky note or whatever? What do you do to help keep your eye on that one singular goal of your future amongst all the other goals you probably have?
This is where it's getting overwhelming, right? Like Excel doesn't have enough rows and columns, right? Like where no,
I hate Excel.
Right? Legit. So what I've been working towards, right? Again, another factor here that we didn't talk about is that over half of the entrepreneurs, again, we're not talking small business owners. There is a distinction, right? You own your hair salon versus you are innovating and creating something to solve a problem in a way that nobody has before, right? That's really the definition of entrepreneurship. And over half of entrepreneurs identify as being ADHD. And so, right? And then so you got that squirrel factor, right? And I always do that with the hands now. Squirrel, right? That's my thing. So,
and then I drink shit like this.
Yeah. No, that actually has a counterbalancing effect. That helps. That brings the hyper focus in. It's good.
Okay, good. I'll drink more.
Caffeine is good. Not too much. There's a line. You go too much and then you go, over the edge.
I know we go on.
Bringing it back. So when you look at all of that and you think, oh God, I'm doing too many things and this and that, I'm like, whatever. And then, my husband, it's so funny to say that now. My husband.
Yeah, just married, everybody. Just married.
Yay. Fresh bride. And so anyway, what he's always saying is like, well, that's easy. Just eliminate anything that's not making money. I'm like, well, there's a lot of parts of what I do as sort of a still like startup and, getting to be a bit of a long in the tooth for the startup, but still whatever, that don't make money. But they're the things you have to do. And there's the things you got to do and put in place so that you can make money. And you've got to make some of those investments, whether it be new technologies, new efforts, new approaches, new relationships, new partnerships, new this, new that, new ways to advertise, new way to get because you're trying to set up the queue. So you're not making money. And not only that, you're spending money, right? So that you can get things in place and you're spending time, you're using resources to put you in a position where you can make money. But then again, it comes to that betting thing, right? So you're the entrepreneur, you got a high tolerance for risk, right? Big appetite, like, bring it. And so you go after it full tilt, like, I don't know, whatever, just go for it. Like, let's try. But then you're still spinning. And so I'm trying to figure out what that new metric is. And for me, where I'm getting to is, where do I feel that I'm making the biggest impact? If I spend my time doing this thing, am I making more impact? Not the money metric, right? Because that'll come. If the thing I'm doing is making the bigger change of the day, of the week, it's making the impact, great. And if it comes at the peril of ignoring, I file stuff late that's due with the government, I don't care. I'm focused on this. I got to get this thing done. This upcoming event, this, whatever, it has to consume me because that's the chance for the biggest impact. And that's ruthless prioritization.
Yeah. And I think, it's perspective is a big play in that. I mean, we've taken our hits on events. We've done things where it costs us. And, we've changed, instead of looking like, oh my God, that sucked, that was a loss or this or that, we look at it as, 50 new potential customers, versus instead of 200 that we were targeting or something. We look at it as, okay, instead of line iteming it, we look at the line item and say, well, let's put this in this column and call it advertising. You know what I mean? We'll just call it advertising. And then it becomes optics, right? Let's to see how much we can squeeze out of it for social media. So I think perspective is a big deal in that too, like how you perceive the time, the things that aren't making money, the losses you're taking along the way, and how do you also prioritize their use, right? Their use, because if you can turn something, so for example, we have an event. It's called Boxing to Business, and it's part one of a two-part event. The second day of the event is the fan event, right? That's going to be a business event for, a fan expo. And then that night is going to be a boxing match. So we're looking at having a pre-promotion a month ahead of the event. And we know it's going to cost us, especially if we want to make it free to everybody. We know it's going to cost us. What is it going to cost? We figure it out, and then we say, okay, we put that in our budget for the line items at the event over there, but we know that this is going to be advertising. At the end of the day, it's a networking event, it's a promotional event. How are we doing it? How many more people? How many potential new customers? As opposed to saying, oh, let's have another networking event where we're going to get the same 20 people who show up at every networking event. You know what I mean? So we're looking to spin those things and rebrand them and repackage them. So I think perspective is really important, and how you reuse those products or those services. So we got 12 whole minutes to fill. I'm pretty sure I could give Rafael the microphone and he could fill 18 of those 12.
I just love that she called us all out as ADHD. I'm not even going to deny it. I'm not even going to deny. Why deny it?
Why deny it? No.
That is an entrepreneurial quality.
It is. Well,
but it helps. Yeah.
But here's the thing about that, right? So let's talk about that for a minute, because they have labeled, when any of that ADHD stuff has always been labeled around can't focus, can't finish a task. And I think when we identify sort of as ADHD and all that, we're really not textbook in the sense of, we can't finish a task. Pretty much there isn't an entrepreneur I know that doesn't set a goal and doesn't go get it, high water or hell. Right. You know what I mean? So you're finishing a task. And I think our thing is that if we're a new version, or we're the real version of ADHD, they've just mislabeled that shit, right? And you have to find a way to use that to your advantage.
It does help. It helps. It helps, Eric. Look, even the platforms that they're coming out with, Google Workspace, Copilot, Monday, all this other stuff, right? That's all geared towards people that need constant movement. And I mean, it really lets you organize things at a pace that has never been available before. So I know when I think about it, I'll often talk to my wife about that the world has caught up to how my brain works. Because for the last 20 years, especially in government, I was an absolute outcast. The speed at which I wanted to move and how quickly I could get things done made no sense. And the connections that I made no sense. But, it's like a dinosaur world. Everything was a hierarchy. Everything is a policy. Now the world is kind of more free flowing. Just as the doctor mentioned earlier, people, it's going from the macro where they would invest in these individuals. So now people on the very, granular level, the entrepreneurs are producing the same type of things. So all we need to do is teach them how to live in this new crazy world, and how to convene people, group together with other people like we do to, leverage the best skills. Those are the best teams right now. People that you just tell them what they're supposed to do, and they somehow coordinate on their own. But we're still not in a world that's comfortable with that.
We're not.
The system still wants to tell you how to move,
And I'm glad you brought up the whole teams thing, because I think that's another thing that a lot of small businesses don't realize, is that you do not need to be partnered with, in bed with, whatever you want to call it. So have that one supply. There's a world out here, and you need to find people that connect with you. They're relatable. They're even your supplier. Let's say you're just getting sand because that's what you do. You do, mixed concrete. You should be able to have a good relationship with that supplier. And if that relationship doesn't feel right, find a new supplier. It is what it is. Because that's going to make, when you have problems that you have to overcome with that, in that particular circumstance, it's going to make it easier for you. You know what I mean? Listen, our ecosystem we've built around Black Ink, and everybody in that ecosystem, we all work well together, and you'll notice that there's nobody in this ecosystem that is a problem.
Yeah.
They're
Being
not.
disruptive.
Yeah.
Disrupting the work.
And
They
I
don't
think
disrupt the work.
a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs also feel like they have to do something with so and so, and I believe that is something we aren't teaching them either. Because that impedes your goals if you're having problems with a business associate, with a partner, with a supplier, with an employee, with a contractor. That impedes your goal building. That impedes reaching your goals. Dr. Mears, what's your thoughts on that?
Quick comeback to the ADHD. One of the things there is that hyper focus is poorly understood, but it's actually one of the things that ADHD folks do really well. The key is we hyper focus on the things we like to do, and we avoid doing at all costs the things we hate. Right? And
wait, we're allowed to avoid those things?
She nailed it.
Well, okay, hold on. Time out. We're allowed to avoid the things we hate, because I thought I had to do that shit too.
Well, no, we convince ourselves and we indulge ourselves because we're like, yeah, I got to file that like stupid New Jersey tax thing, and they changed their bloody portal and I can't even figure out where to freaking log in anymore. So I'm just not going to do my taxes. That's where I'm at. I'll do all the other things because, ooh, that's pretty. Oh, that's sparkly, right? And so we go do that and we're like, oh yeah, but it's on the path because we're going to be doing something better, faster, more amazing. It's going to lead to more money. So we're doing that. And we're hyper-focused on that because that might be a really hard problem to solve, but it comes at the cost of having to do the things we don't want to do. That's the key. Come back to that. And then, so I lost the thread. You were asking before.
I said ADHD, man. Don't worry, I lost the thread too. What the hell was my question?
Eric, I will tell you this. To her point, that is what makes good teams, because just look at how we work on the nonprofit. We have different skill sets, and the things that he just won't do. He'd rather stab himself in the eye than do these things. Those are things I like to do, and vice versa. So it works out. I definitely agree with what you're saying, Doctor. It's like you do with the things that you like to do, but instead of ignoring those things, find others that like to do the stuff that you don't like to do and be buddies with them.
But again, that's that whole ecosystem, right? You're creating this ecosystem where you're filling these relationships and you're relating to each other. And there's a vibe there. I mean, it's funny because, back in the day when the boomers were pretty much running everything, there was no vibe. You hated your boss. They probably hate your boss today too, for a lot of people. But back then it was like, they stuck you in a room and they might as well just gave you maces and swords to figure out, just fuck it, get along. Today, there's difference because we understand that the work environment impacts performance, it impacts output, it impacts results. You know what I mean? And I mean, we're all pretty much Gen Xers here. We're fuck around and find out. You know what I mean? But we're also, let's go get this shit done because mommy's not going to be home cooking us dinner. So I think that, there's that problem solving vibe. And then there's that sort of that tribal vibe that we live in. And you have to have it because we're not going to get anything done if I'm not doing what Rafael is going to do for the national. Absolutely not. I'm not going to do what Mark's going to do for Black Ink. I'm not going to do it. I can't. I will do it, but if I don't have to do it,
you'll say I'll do it badly, and then you're going to do it
right. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, to that point. I mean, well, listen. We know this too. We know anybody who watches this video is going to have heard this in some capacity somewhere before and go, yeah, and then not do it.
Bingo. That's the problem. It's the whole thing, like with training, right? I teach a lot of people in adaptive leadership and training. That's where I'm, here today. And it's all about, okay, what are you going to do differently after this? Because the training, 94% of it falls out of our heads within 24 hours.
Sure.
But this goes all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, and that's that one task. One task.
Right.
That's all it takes. One task. If you can pick up your phone first thing in the morning and start to scroll on social media, and that's your new habit, which a lot of people do now, We're all guilty. A lot of us are guilty of picking up that phone before we even get put our feet on the floor. I think somebody said that to me. Then one task. Was you who said that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. One task. You can make one new task. You could take something we've said here today and put that on a task list. And for the next 3 weeks, because it takes 3 weeks to make a new habit, next 3 weeks, do that one task. That's it. And that's going to start the ball rolling, and then make another task and another, and keep building. As far as planning for your business, here's what I say. Write down your ultimate goal for your business. 5 years, 10 years, set a time. Understand that it might be 7 years or 11 years, or it might be 3 years, but set a goal, whatever that goal is. I want my business to be valued at $5 million in 5 years. That's the goal. Now start looking at how do you get there by taking things like what Rafael said. Break it down to bite-sized pieces. What do I need to make every month for the next year? And then elevate that for year 2, 3, and so on and so forth. And build relationships with people that you get along with. I get along with these people right here all the time. As a matter of fact, I'm always cussing Rafael out, and he's cool about it. He cusses me back. He asks me what my problem is, and we get along fine. It's water under the bridge the next day or the next minute.
We're passionate people. We got similar passions. What can I tell you?
And Dr. Mears and I, Dr. Mears and I, we're only in this now about a year together. We've known each other, and the podcast, we do great. We got great synergy on that. And no, can that work with everybody? Absolutely not. You got to find your tribe. So, Rafael, give us a plug as to where people can find Gambit.
So you can go to my really horrible website, which is it's in process of being fixed now, but www.gambitservices.com. I would say LinkedIn is probably the best place to find what I actually do and what I've done if you really want to learn what we're doing. But I'm open to anyone that wants to move forward in their business.
Yeah, just look up on LinkedIn, easy search, Rafael Mata, Gambit.
The troublemaker.
I don't think troublemaker comes up on LinkedIn.
Gambit. If it did, my name would come up. Or actually, never mind.
The
whole group. We'd mess up LinkedIn's logic at that point. So just look up Rafael Mata, Gambit, Gambit, on LinkedIn. You'll find him. You can't miss that face. Dr. Mears, where are people finding you?
So I spend a lot of time. You see a lot of content on my YouTube channel, which is called Midlife Success. See lots of goodies on there from not just me, but all kinds of fabulous hosts. And LinkedIn, I'm pretty active there. You can find me Loralyn Mears. You can find me SteerUs, but it's easy. Loralyn, as long as you can spell the first name, I probably come up. Loralyn. And my podcast, the one that I'm not doing with Eric, but another one, and that's called Small Business Stories. And get a lot of terrific insights and advice from folks there. Every week, bring on a different expert who knows something about entrepreneurship and gives actionable advice, legit. Listen to it. You don't even need to get through the whole freaking 30 minutes. Just do this thing. Here's the one thing. Go do.
Yeah. So, and on October 14th, it's scrolling at the bottom. We have our Grants and Finance Symposium and Conference in Livingston, New Jersey. Head over to ProcurementCon.com. 2 of our speakers are sitting right in front of you. Rafael is going to be doing the one thing nobody does, and that's basically tell you the truth and the problems and how to overcome them when you're applying for a grant. And then Dr. Mears, you got 30 minutes in the symposium, captive audience. Do you know what you're talking about yet?
Yes. It's really about how do you spin your story, right?
Okay.
Without being dependent on AI, because the tools are starting to come back where they're saying, not so much. And you got to label the AI. You did this, you did that with it.
Yeah.
And so how do you get it done? What do you need to do? What are some of those best practices to be on that other end, right? I'll be the echo on the other side of Rafael. This is what they're looking for. And I'm like, okay, now that we know what they're looking for, this is what you got to deliver.
Right. Awesome. So tune in, folks, to next week's episode. I am going to have Dwayne Wilkins from Local Content, the man, the myth, the legend, as he likes to call himself, and he's really good. And I'm pretty sure you guys have seen, if not heard of him. Just check him out. And I'm also going to have Isaiah Rivera on next week. They are two coaches. They're going to be doing our Boxing to Business event in Atlantic City on October 24th, where we're going to be teaching you ring strategies, real boxer ring strategies to apply to your small business. So things like when a boxer throws a jab, why they throw it a certain way. It's kind of like your delivery for your opening presentation or your elevator pitch. Because if you do it wrong, you're done. So check us out there, ProcurementCon.com, BlackInk.events, both websites. We have something for everybody. I want to thank you both for being on this first episode of the live stream experiment.
Anytime,
So, and Dr. Mears, you and I will get back to how, why, what in a few months. And Rafael, you're not getting rid of me. You're stuck.
We got a lot of work to do.
Yes, we do. All right, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Folks, thank you for being part of this. And we will see you soon. We are out of here.
Thanks for what you do, sir. Thank you.